The day Vethkan received his assignment, he thought it was a joke. He stood in the great council chamber of the Sci-Story homeworld, his forearms folded behind his back in the posture of respect. The High Speaker looked down at him from her elevated platform, her silver eyes showing no emotion. That was normal. Sci-Story never showed emotion. They had evolved past such primitive responses thousands of years ago. You will observe the humans in combat, the High Speaker said. You will document their military capabilities and return with a full assessment. Vethkan blinked his secondary eyelids. Humans? With respect, High Speaker? Why would the Council waste resources on such a minor species? The High Speaker tilted her head slightly. There have been reports. Unusual reports. The Keth Dominion has engaged human forces on several colony worlds. The results have been unexpected. Unexpected how? That is what you will determine. And so Vethkan found himself aboard a transport ship, traveling to the edge of human space. He spent the journey reading everything the Sci-Fi database contained about humanity. It was not much. Humans were a young species from a small planet called Earth. They had only achieved faster than light travel 200 years ago. Their technology was adequate but unremarkable. Their bodies were soft and fragile compared to most spacefaring races. They lived short lives, rarely more than 100 years. They had no natural weapons, no armored skin, no venomous glands. By all measures, they were one of the least impressive species in the known galaxy. Vethkan could not understand why the Council cared about them at all. His transport docked with the human warship Steadfast 3 days later. The ship was smaller than Sci-Fi vessels, built for function rather than elegance. Vethkan walked through the airlock and found a human waiting for him. The human was tall by their species standards, with brown skin and dark hair cut short. He wore a military uniform with symbols Vethkan did not recognize. Most strangely, the human was smiling. You must be our Sci-Fi observer, the human said. He extended one hand toward Vethkan. I am Lieutenant Ben Harper. Welcome aboard. Vethkan stared at the extended hand. He had read about this human custom, physical contact as greeting. It seemed unsanitary and inefficient. But he reached out with one of his own hands and allowed the human to grip it briefly. I am Vethkan. The Sci-Fi High Council has sent me to observe your military operations. We know, Ben Harper said. His smile did not fade. Command told us to give you full access. You can go anywhere. See anything. We have nothing to hide. This surprised Vethkan. Most species guarded their military secrets carefully, but he simply nodded and followed the lieutenant into the ship. The Steadfast was loud. That was the first thing Vethkan noticed. Humans talked constantly. They laughed. They argued. They called out greetings to each other in the corridors. A Sci-Fi vessel would have been silent except for necessary communication. Here, the noise never stopped. Ben Harper led him to a section of the ship where a group of soldiers were gathered. They sat on crates and benches, cleaning weapons and talking among themselves. When Vethkan entered, they all looked up. This is the squad you will be assigned to, Ben Harper said. Sergeant Danny Cole is the squad leader. He will be responsible for your safety during ground operations. One of the humans stood up. He was shorter than the lieutenant, with pale skin and light brown hair. His face had lines around the eyes and mouth. Vethkan had learned that this indicated age in humans. Though by Sci-Fi standards, this human was barely past childhood. Sergeant Cole, the human said, extending his hand just as the lieutenant had done. Vethkan repeated the strange gripping ritual. I am here to observe only. I will not interfere with your operations. Danny Cole nodded. Understood. But if shooting starts, you stay behind me. Clear? I am capable of protecting myself. Something shifted in Danny Cole's expression. The other humans in the room exchanged glances. Then Danny Cole spoke again, his voice calm but firm. On my squad, we protect each other. That includes you now. So if shooting starts, you stay behind me. Vethkan did not understand this response, but he chose not to argue. Very well. Danny Cole turned to the other soldiers. Let me introduce you. This is Corporal Katie Grant, our medic. A female human with red hair and pale skin covered in small brown spots nodded at Vethkayan. Her eyes were sharp and assessing. Private First Class Sam Ortiz, Danny Cole continued, gesturing to a younger human male with dark hair and an eager expression. He is new, but he is learning fast. Hello, Sam Ortiz said. He seemed genuinely excited to meet Vethkan. I have never met a Sithori before. Is it true you can see in complete darkness? Our eyes are more sensitive than human eyes. Yes, that is amazing. Vethkan did not know how to respond to this enthusiasm. Sithori did not express amazement at simple biological facts. Over the next 2 days, Vethkan observed the squad as they prepared for their mission. The Steadfast was traveling to a human colony called Meridian. The Keth Dominion had been spotted moving toward the planet, and the humans intended to defend it. What struck Vethkan most was how much time the humans spent on activities that had nothing to do with combat preparation. They ate meals together, sharing food from their personal supplies. They told stories about their families and homes. Sam Ortiz showed pictures of his younger sister to anyone who would look. Katie Grant talked about a garden she was growing on a space station somewhere. Danny Cole was quieter than the others, but he listened to everything. Sometimes he would ask questions about the other soldiers' lives. He remembered details. When Sam Ortiz mentioned that his sister was about to start university, Danny Cole asked about it the next day. Vethkan recorded all of this in his observation notes. He wrote, "Humans appear to form strong social bonds, even in military units. They share personal information freely. This seems inefficient. Emotional attachments create vulnerabilities in combat situations. A soldier who cares too much about another soldier may make poor tactical decisions." He believed this assessment was accurate. On the 3rd day, the Steadfast reached Meridian Colony. The planet was small and green, with 2 moons and a population of 40,000 humans. From orbit, it looked peaceful. Then the sensors detected the Keth fleet. 12 warships emerged from faster-than-light travel on the far side of the planet. The Keth Dominion had arrived in force. Vethkan quickly calculated the numbers. The Keth had at least 8,000 ground troops. The humans had fewer than 2,000 defenders on the planet below. Any logical species would negotiate. The odds were impossible. Vethkayan turned to observe Danny Cole's reaction. He expected to see fear, or perhaps the calm acceptance of inevitable defeat. Instead, Danny Cole simply checked his rifle. He looked at his squad, and they looked back at him. Something passed between them that Vethkayan could not identify. "Get your gear," Danny Cole said quietly. "We are going down there." Vethkan stepped forward. "Sergeant, the enemy outnumbers you 4-1. Surely the logical response is to evacuate civilians and withdraw." Danny Cole looked at him. His expression was not angry or afraid. It was something else entirely. Something Vethkan had never seen on a Sci-Fi face. "There are 40,000 people down there," Danny Cole said. "Families, children. They cannot all be evacuated in time." He picked up his helmet and placed it on his head. "So, we are going to buy them that time. You will die." Danny Cole almost smiled. "Maybe. But they will not." He walked toward the dropship bay. The other soldiers followed without hesitation. Katie Grant checked her medical supplies. Sam Ortiz bounced slightly on his feet, nervous but determined. Vethkan stood alone for a moment, his mind struggling to process what he had witnessed. These humans knew they were probably going to die. They were going anyway. Not because they were ordered to, not because they had no choice, but because there were strangers on that planet who needed help. It made no sense. He followed them to the dropship. As they strapped in for descent, Danny Cole looked at Vethkan one more time. "Stay behind us down there," he said. "Whatever happens, stay behind us." Then, as the dropship fell toward the burning colony below, Danny Cole added 4 more words. "Get behind us." The dropship hit the ground hard. Vethkan's restraints dug into his body as the vessel skidded across broken concrete and came to a stop. Before he could even process what was happening, Danny Cole was already unbuckling and moving toward the door. Go, go, go! Danny Cole shouted. The soldiers poured out of the dropship into chaos. Meridian Colony was burning. Smoke filled the air so thick that even Veth Khan's superior eyes struggled to see clearly. Buildings had collapsed into piles of rubble. The sound of weapons fire came from every direction. Somewhere in the distance, a child was screaming. Danny Cole grabbed Veth Khan's arm and pulled him behind a fallen wall. Stay low. Stay close. Veth Khan's training told him to observe and document, but his hands were shaking. He had studied war from the safety of council chambers. He had never smelled it before. The air was thick with smoke and blood and something chemical that burned his throat. "Sergeant," Katie Grant called out. She was crouched near the corner of the wall, looking through a scope. "Hospital is 2 blocks north. I can see Keth forces moving toward it." "How many?" "At least 60, maybe more." Danny Cole was quiet for exactly 2 seconds. Then he spoke. "The hospital is full of wounded. Civilians. We hold it." Sam Ortiz checked his rifle. His hands were steady even though his face was pale. "We are only 8 soldiers." "Sergeant." "I know." Danny Cole looked at each member of his squad. "Anyone want to leave?" No one moved. No one spoke. "Good. Move out." They ran through the burning streets. Veth Khan ran with them, his 4 legs carrying him faster than the humans could move. But he stayed behind them, as Danny Cole had ordered. He watched as they moved with practiced coordination, covering each other, checking corners, never leaving anyone exposed. They reached the hospital just as the first Keth soldiers appeared on the opposite side of the street. The Keth were tall creatures with gray skin and 4 arms like the Scythori, but their bodies were built for violence. Sharp-boned spurs extended from their elbows and knees. Their eyes were solid black, showing no emotion at all. They carried plasma rifles that glowed with deadly energy. There were many more than 60. Veth Khan counted over 100 before he stopped counting. "Inside," Danny Cole ordered. Now, the squad burst through the hospital doors. Inside, the scene was desperate. Wounded humans lay on beds and stretchers and on the floor itself. Medical staff ran between patients, trying to save lives with limited supplies. In one corner, a group of children huddled together, their faces streaked with tears. A human doctor rushed toward Danny Cole. "Thank God. Are you the reinforcements?" "We are what you get," Danny Cole said. "How many can walk?" "Maybe 30. The rest cannot be moved." "Then we hold here until evacuation arrives." The doctor's face went pale. "Hold? Against how many?" Danny Cole did not answer. He was already moving, positioning his soldiers at windows and doors. Katie Grant went straight to the wounded, her medical kit open before she even knelt down. Veth Khan found a corner where he could observe without being in the way. He activated his recording device and began documenting. The first Keth assault came minutes later. Plasma bolts shattered windows and burned through walls. The humans returned fire with their projectile weapons, the loud cracks of their rifles mixing with the hiss of energy weapons. Veth Khan watched Danny Cole stand at a window, firing with calm precision, never wasting a shot. A Keth soldier broke through a side door. Sam Ortiz was there, too close for his rifle. The young human did not hesitate. He dropped his weapon and tackled the Keth, wrestling with a creature twice his weight. Another soldier shot the Keth before it could use its bone spurs on Sam. "Thanks," Sam gasped, scrambling back to his position. "Buy me a drink later," the other soldier replied. They were joking. In the middle of combat, with death all around them, they were joking. Veth Khan did not understand. The assault lasted 20 minutes. When it ended, 3 Keth soldiers lay wounded on the hospital floor. Veth Khan expected the humans to execute them. That was standard military practice for most species. Wounded enemies were liabilities. Instead, Katie Grant walked over to them with her medical kit. "What are you doing?" Veth Khan asked. Katie did not look up from her work. She was examining a wound on one of the Keth soldiers. "My job. They are enemies. They were trying to kill you. They are wounded. I am a medic." She pulled out a bandage and began wrapping the Keth's arm. "That is all that matters right now." Veth Khan recorded this in his notes. He wrote, Human medic provides treatment to enemy combatants. Reason unclear. Possible strategic value in prisoners. But treatment seems motivated by something else. The second assault came an hour later. It was worse. The Keth had brought heavier weapons. Explosions tore through the hospital walls. Dust and debris filled the air. Veth Khan heard screaming from the civilian area and saw one of the medical staff lying still on the ground, blood pooling beneath her. Sam Ortiz was at a window when the wall next to him exploded. The blast threw him backward. Veth Khan saw the young human hit the ground and not move. "Sam!" Danny Cole shouted. He ran across the room through active gunfire. Plasma bolts struck the floor around him. He did not slow down. He reached Sam and grabbed him, pulling the young soldier behind cover. Sam was alive but badly hurt. A piece of metal had gone through his leg, and burns covered one side of his face. He was conscious. His teeth clenched against the pain. "I can still fight," Sam said. "No." Danny Cole's voice was firm. "Katie," the medic appeared, already working on Sam before Danny finished calling her name. Danny Cole stayed with them for a moment, his hand on Sam's shoulder. "You did good," Danny Cole said quietly. "Rest now." Then he picked up Sam's rifle and went back to the window. The battle continued. The humans were running low on ammunition. 2 more soldiers were wounded. But they did not retreat. They did not surrender. At one point, a Keth soldier got past the defenses and ran toward the children in the corner. Veth Khan watched Katie Grant drop her medical supplies, pull out a sidearm, and shoot the Keth 3 times before it could reach them. Then she holstered her weapon and went back to treating the wounded without a word. When there was finally a break in the fighting, Veth Khan approached Danny Cole. "Sergeant, your forces are depleted. Your ammunition is nearly gone. The logical choice is to withdraw and save the soldiers who can still move." Danny Cole was reloading his rifle. His hands were bloody. His face was covered in dirt and sweat. He looked at Veth Khan with eyes that held no surrender. "And leave the wounded behind? They cannot be moved quickly. They will slow your retreat. In military terms, they are acceptable losses." Danny Cole stopped what he was doing. He turned to face Veth Khan fully. When he spoke, his voice was quiet but hard as steel. "There is no such thing as acceptable losses. Not in my squad. Not ever. But surely your survival is more important than—" "It is not." Danny Cole pointed toward the corner where Sam Ortiz lay with Katie Grant tending his wounds. "That young man has a sister who is starting university next month. He wants to be there when she graduates. That matters." He pointed to another soldier. "She has 2 sons waiting for her on Earth. They matter." He pointed to the group of children still huddled in the corner, watching everything with huge, frightened eyes. "Those kids have never met me. They do not know my name. They still matter." Danny Cole picked up his rifle. "We do not leave people behind. Not wounded soldiers, not scared children, not anyone. That is what makes us human." Veth Khan did not know what to say. In Sithori military doctrine, individual lives were weighed against strategic value. Emotion was removed from the calculation. It was efficient. It was logical. It was nothing like this. The third assault began before he could respond. This time, the Keth came in greater numbers. This time, Veth Khan was certain they would all die, but Danny Cole just checked his ammunition, looked at his tired and bleeding soldiers, and said 4 words: "Hold the line." 6 hours. That was how long reinforcements would take to arrive. 6 hours against an enemy that outnumbered them 10-1. Veth Khan calculated the odds in his head and found them impossible. The humans did not seem to care about odds. Danny Cole gathered what remained of his squad near the center of the hospital. 4 soldiers were still combat-ready. 2 more were wounded but could still fire from cover. Sam Ortiz was unconscious from pain medication, but Katie Grant refused to leave his side, except when other wounded needed her. "Ammunition count," Danny Cole said. The numbers were bad. Each soldier had maybe 20 rounds left. After that, they would be fighting with knives and bare hands. The Keth commander's voice crackled over a captured radio. The alien spoke in broken human language. "Humans, we offer terms. Surrender the civilians to us, and your soldiers may leave. You have 1 hour to decide. Danny Cole picked up the radio. He looked at his soldiers. They looked back at him. Then he pressed the transmit button. This is Sergeant Danny Cole of the Human Defense Force. Here are my terms. Turn around and leave this planet. If you do not, we will make you regret ever coming here. I would do. There was silence on the radio for a long moment. Then the Keth commander laughed. It was an ugly sound. You are 8 soldiers. You have no ammunition. You have no hope. What can you possibly do? Danny Cole smiled. It was not a friendly smile. Come find out. He dropped the radio and crushed it under his boot. Then he looked at his squad. They are coming in force this time. No more testing our defenses. They want to end this. What do we do? One of the soldiers asked. We make them pay for every step. Danny Cole removed the safety from his rifle. And we do not stop until our hearts stop beating. Veth Kayan watched him walk toward the main entrance. The other soldiers followed. Katie Grant stayed with the wounded, but pulled out her sidearm and checked the ammunition. You should hide, she told Veth Khan. This is going to be bad. I am an observer. It is my duty to watch. Katie looked at him with something strange in her eyes. Then watch closely. And remember what you see. The final assault began with an explosion that tore through the front wall of the hospital. Keth soldiers poured through the gap, dozens of them, their weapons firing continuously. The sound was deafening. Danny Cole stood in the center of the chaos and fought. Veth Khan had never seen anything like it. The human moved with a speed and precision that seemed impossible. He fired, moved, fired again. Every shot found its target. When his rifle clicked empty, he threw it at the nearest Keth and pulled out his pistol. When the pistol was empty, he drew his knife. A Keth soldier twice his size charged at him. Danny Cole did not retreat. He stepped forward, ducked under the alien's swing, and drove his knife into the gap in its armor. The Keth fell. Danny Cole pulled the knife free and turned to face the next enemy. He had been wounded 3 times. Blood ran down his left arm from a plasma burn. A cut on his forehead sent blood into his eyes. He wiped it away and kept fighting. The other soldiers fought around him. One by one, they fell back as ammunition ran out. One by one, they picked up whatever they could use as weapons. A broken piece of metal, a chair leg, their own fists. A Keth soldier broke through toward the area where the children were hiding. Katie Grant was there. She had run out of ammunition long ago. She picked up a surgical tool from a nearby table and drove it into the Keth's throat before it could raise its weapon. Then she turned to the children and spoke calmly. Stay behind me. It will be okay. Her hands were covered in blood. Her voice did not shake. Veth Khan's recording device captured everything. He watched humans fight with broken bones and bleeding wounds. He watched them protect each other, even when protecting themselves would have been smarter. He watched a species that should have been overwhelmed refuse to fall. And then something happened that he would never forget. Sam Ortiz woke up. The young soldier had been unconscious from his wounds and medication, but the sound of battle must have reached him even in his drugged sleep. He opened his eyes, saw what was happening, and started to sing. It was a human song. Veth Khan did not know the words, but Sam's voice, weak and rough with pain, rose above the sound of combat. One of the other soldiers heard him. She was bleeding from a wound in her side, her rifle empty. Facing 3 Keth soldiers alone. She started singing too. Then another soldier joined, and another. The humans were singing. In the middle of combat, surrounded by enemies, facing certain death, they were singing together. Veth Khan felt something move in his chest. He had no word for it. The Sithari had removed such feelings from their species generations ago. But something was there. Something warm and painful and strange. The singing seemed to give the humans new strength. They fought harder. They moved faster. Danny Cole, his knife broken, picked up a Keth plasma rifle and used it to shoot its former owners. And then the wall exploded again. But this time, It was not the Keth coming through. Lieutenant Ben Harper led a squad of 30 human soldiers into the hospital. They came in, firing, their weapons cutting through the Keth forces like a blade through water. Reinforcements arrived early, Ben Harper shouted over the chaos. We marched 18 hours through enemy lines to get here. The tide of battle turned. The Keth, caught between Danny Cole's desperate defense and Ben Harper's fresh assault, began to fall back. Their orderly attack became a retreat. Then the retreat became a rout. 20 minutes later, it was over. Vethkane stood in the ruined hospital and looked at what remained. The walls were scorched and broken. Bodies lay everywhere, mostly Keth. The humans who had survived sat or lay among the rubble, too tired to move. Danny Cole was leaning against a pillar. His wounds had finally caught up with him. Katie Grant was by his side, treating his injuries with hands that still trembled slightly. You should have died, Vethkan said. He did not mean it as an insult. It was simply a fact. The odds were impossible. Created by Znot. Contraund. Danny Cole looked up at him. Despite everything, despite the blood and exhaustion and pain, the human was smiling. Maybe, he said, but impossible is not the same as unbeatable. Ben Harper walked over to them. His uniform was torn and bloody, but he was standing straight. Colony is secure. Evacuation ships are on the way. We did it. The humans began to react. Some laughed. Some cried. Sam Ortiz, awake now, and propped against the wall, was hugging another soldier with his good arm. Katie Grant sat down suddenly, as if her legs had given out, and put her face in her hands. Vethkayan watched them. He watched these strange, emotional, illogical creatures embrace each other. He watched them weep and laugh at the same time. He watched Danny Cole walk to each member of his squad and touch their shoulders, their hands, their faces, as if making sure they were really alive. He thought about what he had witnessed, not just the fighting, but everything else. The singing, the refusal to abandon the wounded, the medic who treated enemy soldiers, the sergeant who remembered that a young private's sister was starting university. The Sithori had evolved past emotion. They had decided long ago that feelings were inefficient, dangerous, primitive. They had built a civilization based on logic and reason. But watching the humans celebrate their impossible victory, Vethkan was no longer certain that his people had evolved forward. Perhaps they had evolved away from something important. He did not write this in his notes. He was not sure how to put it into words. But he felt it. Somewhere in the part of himself that the Sithori were supposed to have removed. He felt it. And it changed everything. The battle was over. Vethkan expected celebration. He expected the humans to boast about their victory, to parade their success, to behave as conquerors. Instead, he witnessed something entirely different. On the morning after the battle, Danny Cole gathered the survivors in front of the ruined hospital. They stood in silence as the names were read. 17 humans had died, defending Meridian Colony. 17 names spoken into the cold morning air. Private Luis Vega, Corporal Amy Fisher, Private First Class Tony Marsh. The list continued. With each name, the humans bowed their heads. Some of them wept openly. Others stood with their jaws tight, fighting to control themselves. When the last name was spoken, there was silence for a long moment. Then Danny Cole stepped forward. They gave everything, he said. His voice was rough. Not for glory, not for medals. They gave everything so that 40,000 people could live another day. We will never forget them. We will carry them with us. Always. Vethkan recorded this, but his recording device could not capture what he felt as he watched. The weight of grief in the air was almost physical. He could feel it pressing against his chest. After the ceremony, the humans began the slow work of recovery. Medical ships had arrived to take the wounded to better facilities. Sam Ortiz was carried aboard one of them, his leg in a stabilizing cast, his face still burned but healing. Danny Cole walked beside the stretcher until they reached the ship's door. You did good, Sam, Danny Cole said. Sam tried to smile. Did we win, Sergeant? We won. Good. Sam closed his eyes. Tell my sister I said hi, if you see her. You will tell her yourself when you get home. The medical ship lifted off, carrying Sam and dozens of other wounded toward the orbital hospital station. Danny Cole watched it go until it disappeared into the clouds. For the next 3 days, Veth Kayan followed Danny Cole everywhere. He watched the sergeant visit every wounded soldier in the temporary medical center. He watched Danny Cole sit with a young female soldier who had lost her arm in the fighting. He watched him listen as she cried, saying nothing, just being present. He watched Danny Cole write letters to the families of the dead, 17 letters. Each one personal. Each one mentioning something specific about the fallen soldier. How do you know all of these details? Veth Khan asked. Danny Cole did not look up from his writing. I learn about everyone in my unit, where they came from, what they love, who is waiting for them at home. He paused, his pen hovering over the paper. If they die, someone should be able to tell their families who they really were. Not just their rank and serial number, who they were. That must be painful. To know them so well and then lose them. Danny Cole finally looked up. His eyes were red from lack of sleep. Or perhaps from something else. Yes, it is. But forgetting them would be worse. On the 4th day, a funeral was held for the soldiers whose bodies had been recovered. Veth Khan attended as an observer, standing at the back of the crowd. The ceremony was strange to him. There were no military formations, no formal protocols. Instead, the humans stood in loose groups, supporting each other. They shared stories about the dead. Some stories were sad, others were funny. A few made the gathered humans laugh even as tears ran down their faces. Danny Cole spoke about a soldier named Amy Fisher. She had been under his command for 2 years. Amy loved terrible jokes, he said. She would tell them at the worst possible times. Right before a mission, she would say something so stupid that everyone would groan, but it made us laugh, it made us relax. He paused, and Veth Khan saw his shoulders shake slightly. Yesterday, someone started to tell one of her jokes, and they stopped halfway through because they realized she was not there to hear the punchline. He looked at the gathered humans. I do not know what happens after we die. I do not know if Amy can hear me now. But if she can, I want her to know that we will keep telling her terrible jokes. We will groan and roll our eyes and laugh anyway. We will carry her with us until it is our turn to go. That is what we do. We remember. We carry each other. When the ceremony ended, the humans did not immediately disperse. They stayed together, talking quietly, embracing each other. Veth Khan watched Katie Grant put her arms around a soldier who was crying. He watched Ben Harper stand with his hand on Danny Cole's shoulder, saying nothing. Just standing there. Later that evening, Veth Khan found Danny Cole alone on the edge of the colony, looking out at the sunset. The human's face was wet with tears, though he made no sound. Veth Khan approached slowly. May I join you? Danny Cole nodded without speaking. They stood in silence for a long time. Finally, Veth Kayan spoke. Your species confuses me. I know. You experience such pain. The grief I have witnessed in the past few days. It seems almost unbearable. Why do you not simply remove it? The Sithori developed techniques generations ago to eliminate such suffering. We erase painful memories. We suppress emotional responses. It makes us more efficient, more stable. Danny Cole turned to look at him. And what do you have left? After you erase the pain? Veth Khan considered the question. Peace, calm, the ability to function without distraction. But do you have love? The question caught Veth Khan off guard. We have partnerships, logical arrangements for reproduction and social stability. That is not what I asked. Danny Cole looked back at the sunset. When I think about Amy Fisher, it hurts. It hurts so much I can barely breathe sometimes, but that pain exists because I loved her, not romantically, but as a comrade, as a friend, as family. The pain is proof that she mattered to me. He wiped his face with his hand. If I erased the pain, I would have to erase the love too. And I would rather hurt forever then forget that she existed. Veth Ka'an did not respond. He was thinking about his own life, his own people. The Sithori did not mourn their dead. They recorded the loss and moved forward. It was efficient. It was painless. It was empty. For the first time, Veth Khan wondered what his people had sacrificed in their pursuit of emotional peace. What loves had been erased? What connections had been severed? What made life meaningful if you could not feel the weight of losing someone you cared about? My observation period ends tomorrow, Veth Khan said. I must return to the Sithori homeworld and deliver my report. Danny Cole nodded. Will you be okay? Going back? It was a strange question. No one had ever asked Veth Khan if he would be okay before. The concept of concern for another being's emotional state was foreign to Sithori culture. I do not know, Veth Khan admitted. I am not sure I am the same person who arrived here. Danny Cole reached out and put his hand on Veth Khan's upper arm. The physical contact startled him, but he did not pull away. For what it is worth, Danny Cole said, you were never in my way. You stayed when you could have run. That means something. I was only observing. You were there. Sometimes that is enough. That night, Veth Khan lay in his quarters and could not sleep. He thought about everything he had witnessed. The fighting, yes, but also everything after. The grief, the love, the tears, the laughter, the terrible pain of loss, and the strange beauty of remembering. He thought about his report to the High Council. They wanted military data, tactical assessments, strategic analysis. He had something else entirely. In the morning, Veth Khan packed his belongings and prepared to leave. Danny Cole and Katie Grant came to see him off. Sam Ortiz sent a message from the medical station, wishing him safe travels. Thank you, Veth Khan said, for allowing me to observe. Elated, Veth Khan said. Thank you for staying, Katie Grant replied. Danny Cole pressed something into Veth Khan's hand. It was a small metal object, roughly made. Veth Khan recognized it as a piece of shrapnel that had been shaped and polished. What is this? A reminder, Danny Cole said. From Meridian Colony. So you remember what happened here? Veth Khan closed his fingers around the small object. I do not think I could forget, even if I wanted to. He boarded his transport and watched through the window as the planet grew smaller. He held the piece of metal in his hand and felt its weight. He was going home, but he was not sure where home was anymore. The Sithori homeworld had not changed in the weeks Veth Khan had been away. The silver towers still rose toward the pale sky. The streets were still silent and orderly. Citizens moved with purpose, their faces empty of expression. Veth Khan walked through the familiar corridors of the High Council building and felt like a stranger in his own skin. The council chamber was exactly as he remembered. High ceilings, cold light, the elevated platform where the High Speaker sat. 3 council members waited for him, their silver eyes watching as he entered. Observer Veth Khan, the High Speaker said, you have returned. We are ready to receive your report on human military capabilities. Veth Khan stood in the center of the chamber. He had rehearsed what he would say during the entire journey home. But now, standing here, the words felt wrong. Begin, the High Speaker commanded. Veth Khan took a breath. The humans use standard projectile weapons and plasma technology, comparable to most spacefaring species. Their tactical formations are flexible rather than rigid. Their command structure allows for independent decision-making at lower levels. The council members made notes. One of them spoke. What are their strategic weaknesses? Veth Khan paused. The piece of metal Danny Cole had given him was in his pocket. He could feel its weight against his leg. Their primary weakness is their attachment to individual lives, Veth Khan said. They refuse to abandon wounded soldiers even when retreat would be tactically superior. They prioritize the protection of civilians over strategic objectives. Good, another council member said. This can be exploited. If we target their wounded or their civilian populations, we can force them into disadvantageous positions. Yes, Veth Khan said slowly. That is theoretically possible. He stopped speaking. The council waited. Is there more? The high speaker asked. There was so much more. There was everything. But Veth Khan did not know how to explain it in terms the council would understand. I observed their behavior after combat, he said carefully. They mourn their dead extensively. They hold ceremonies. They weep. They share memories of the fallen. Inefficient, a council member observed. Grief serves no strategic purpose. That is what I believed, Veth Khan said. Before. The high speaker leaned forward slightly. Before what? Veth Khan closed his eyes. He saw Danny Cole weeping at the sunset. He saw Katie Grant embracing a crying soldier. He saw Sam Ortiz singing in the middle of battle. He saw the humans celebrating their impossible victory, laughing and crying at the same time. Before I understood what grief means to them, Veth Khan said. It is not a weakness. It is proof of connection. They mourn because they love. They fight so fiercely because they fight for each other, not for territory or resources. Every soldier knows that if they fall, they will be remembered. They will be mourned. They will matter. The council chamber was silent. The council members exchanged glances. This is emotional contamination, one of them said. Observer Veth Khan has spent too long among the humans. His objectivity has been compromised. I am trying to give an accurate report, Veth Khan said. The humans are not like us. They cannot be analyzed using our frameworks. If you go to war with them, you need to understand what you are facing. And what are we facing? The high speaker asked. Veth Khan thought about Danny Cole standing in the ruined hospital, fighting with his bare hands. He thought about Katie Grant treating enemy wounded, because it was her duty. He thought about the singing rising above the sound of weapons fire. You are facing a species that will never stop, he said. Not because they cannot feel fear, but because they feel something stronger. They call it love. They call it duty. They call it humanity. I do not have a Scythery word for it, because we removed it from ourselves generations ago. He looked directly at the high speaker. Do not go to war with humanity. Not because they will defeat you. They might. But there is a worse outcome. What outcome? They will make you watch what war truly costs. They will make you see the price of every life taken. And then, when it is over, they will mourn their enemies. They will regret your deaths, even as they celebrate their victory. Veth Khan's voice was shaking now. They will make you feel things you have spent generations trying to forget, and you will never be the same. The chamber was completely silent. Then the high speaker spoke. This is unacceptable, observer Veth Khan. You have been compromised by prolonged exposure to human emotional patterns. You will report to the adjustment center immediately for memory correction. Veth Khan felt cold spread through his body. Memory correction. They would erase everything. The battle, the grief, the funerals, the singing, Danny Cole's smile, Katie Grant's hands treating enemy wounded, Sam Ortiz asking if they had won. They would erase it all, and he would go back to being empty. No, he said. The council members looked at him with surprise. Refusal was not common among the Scythery. It was not logical. No, I will not have my memories erased. Veth Khan stood straighter than he had ever stood in his life. What I witnessed on Meridian Colony was the most important thing I have ever seen. It changed me. I will not let you take it away. You do not have a choice, the high speaker said. This is for the good of our society. Emotional contamination cannot be allowed to spread. Two guards moved toward Veth Khan. He did not resist as they took his arms. He knew he could not fight them. But as they led him toward the door, he spoke one more time. In my final report, which you may now discard, I wrote a recommendation. I said, do not go to war with humanity. Not because of their weapons or their tactics, but because they will make you remember what it means to feel. And once you remember, you cannot go back to being empty. He was taken to the adjustment center. They placed him in the chamber, the machines humming around him. A technician prepared the procedure. Veth Khan reached into his pocket and pulled out the small piece of metal Danny Cole had given him. He held it tightly in his hand. The technician noticed. You must release that. All personal items must be removed. Veth Khan looked at the piece of metal. He thought about Danny Cole telling him it was a reminder. He thought about everything the humans had taught him without even trying. He thought about what it meant to truly live. I refuse the procedure, he said. That is not an option. Then I choose exile. The technician stopped. Exile was the most severe punishment for a Scythery. It meant being cut off from the homeworld forever. No Scythery had chosen it voluntarily in over 200 years. You would leave everything? Your position, your family, your entire life? Veth Khan thought about his life. His quiet apartment. His orderly routine. His emotionless existence. I would leave nothing, he said. Because I have nothing here. Not anymore. The humans showed me what it means to have something worth losing. I cannot go back to emptiness now that I know what fullness feels like. The procedure was halted. The council was consulted. In the end, they granted his request for exile, perhaps relieved to be rid of him and his contaminated thinking. 3 days later, Veth Khan boarded a transport heading toward human space. He had nothing with him except the clothes he wore and the piece of metal in his pocket, and a letter. Danny Cole had given him his contact information before he left Meridian Colony. In case you ever need anything, the human had said, or just want to talk. Veth Khan had not understood the offer at the time. Now he did. He sat by the window and watched the stars stream past. His homeworld was behind him, growing smaller with every second. Ahead lay the unknown. Ahead lay the humans. He pulled out the letter he had written during the journey. It was addressed to Danny Cole. It read, I was sent to observe monsters. I found something else instead. I have been exiled from my people because I refuse to forget what you taught me. I do not know what I will do in human space. I do not know where I belong anymore. But you said I was welcome if I was ever nearby. I am taking you at your word. I hope that is acceptable. Veth Khan looked out at the stars. He thought about what waited for him. Uncertainty. Struggle. The pain of feeling things he had spent his whole life avoiding, but also connection. Meaning, the possibility of truly living instead of merely existing. The humans had taught him that some things were worth bleeding for. Now he had to find out what those things were for himself. He held the piece of metal tight in his hand and watched the stars. For the first time since leaving Meridian Colony, he felt something warm in his chest. He thought it might be hope. They held. Veth Khan did not understand why those simple words made something cold move through his chest. But as the first explosions lit up the sky outside the window, he began to suspect that everything he thought he knew about humans was wrong.